I should have known something was wrong when my invitation to Christmas dinner came through my cousin's girlfriend, not my own mother. Just so you know, she whispered over the phone, your mom said to tell you they're doing things differently this year. I'm Marcus, I'm 31, and I'm the family disappointment who became a mortgage broker. Yeah, I know how that sounds. When people hear mortgage broker, they picture some guy in a cheap suit trying to sell them loans they can't afford. But here's the thing. I'm actually really good at what I do. Growing up, I was the weird kid who collected business cards from bank tellers like other kids collected Pokemon cards. While my brother Jake was captain of everything and my sister Emma was valedictorian of everything, I was the one asking the Pizza Hut manager about their franchise model. My parents called it cute when I was 12. They called it concerning when I was 22. I didn't go to college. Not because I couldn't, but because I was already making money flipping contracts and learning real estate law from YouTube videos and library books that smelled like old coffee. My dad, a high school principal, treated my success like a phase I'd grow out of. When are you going to get a real job? He'd ask, while I was literally closing deals that paid more than his monthly salary. But you know how families are. They see what they want to see. My brother Jake works in marketing for a company that makes those little plastic clips that hold bread bags closed. Emma teaches 3rd grade and posts motivational quotes on Facebook that make my teeth hurt. But they have degrees. They have 401ks. They have my parents' respect. I have a business that runs itself and a bank account that would make them dizzy, but I'm still the family screw-up who doesn't understand the value of education. It's funny how success doesn't count if it doesn't come with a diploma, right? 3 years ago, when my parents were struggling with their mortgage after Dad's cancer treatments, I didn't make a big show of it. I just quietly restructured their loan through my company, got them a better rate, and made sure the payments were manageable. They never asked how it happened. They just said the bank must have made a mistake in their favor. A happy little accident. That's what they called it. Not their son using his professional expertise to save their house. Just a lucky break. Last Christmas, I sat at the kids' table because the adults need to discuss real things. I watched Jake talk about innovations in bread clip technology, while Emma explained why cursive writing is important for developing neural pathways. I nodded and ate my ham and thought about the 3 houses I'd bought that month. But this year felt different from the start. The family group chat was quieter. My birthday passed with just a happy birthday text from my aunt, not even a call from Mom. When Thanksgiving came, I got sick with food poisoning and couldn't make it. Nobody checked on me. Not even a "hope you feel better" text. So when the Christmas invitation came through Sarah, my cousin's girlfriend who barely knows me, I knew I was being managed. They're doing a smaller thing this year, she said carefully. More intimate. Just close family. I asked if I was close family. She got quiet. I think you should call your mom, she said. I didn't call my mom. I called my business partner, Lisa, who has a psychology degree she never uses but should. They're freezing you out, she said. Classic family scapegoat stuff. They need someone to be less than so they can feel more than. I asked her what I should do. Document everything, she said. And maybe it's time they learned who they're actually dealing with. I spent December organizing my files. Not because I planned to use them but because Lisa was right. I needed to know what was true versus what they'd convinced me was true. Bank records, loan documents, property transfers. Numbers don't lie. People do, but numbers don't. December 23rd, Sarah called again. So, about Christmas. Your mom wanted me to tell you they're doing it at Jake's new house this year. She said you'd understand why that makes it complicated. I asked what she meant by complicated. Well, you know how you and Jake don't always get along. Jake and I get along fine. We're not close, but we're not enemies. We're just different people who share DNA and childhood trauma. But apparently, his new house was too small for the whole family, and since I was the least committed to family traditions anyway, I was the logical person to sit this one out. Maybe next year, Sarah said, like she was negotiating a business deal, when everyone's had time to adjust. I asked her what everyone needed to adjust to. She got that careful tone again. You know how your parents feel about your lifestyle. My lifestyle of being financially stable and emotionally independent, apparently. I hung up and sat in my home office, looking at my wall of certifications and licenses that my family had never asked about. Real estate license. Mortgage broker license. Notary public commission. I'd built something real while they were arguing about bread clips and cursive writing. Christmas Eve, I drove past Jake's new house. It's nice. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, craftsman style with a little front porch. I know because I'm the one who arranged his financing. He couldn't qualify for the loan on his own. His debt-to-income ratio was terrible, and he had a bankruptcy from college credit cards. I sat in my car across the street and watched my family arrive. Mom and Dad with their arms full of presents. Emma with her kids who barely know my name. Aunts and uncles I hadn't heard from in months. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. I took a photo of the house with my phone, not to be creepy, but because I wanted to remember how it felt to be looking at my own work from the outside. Then I drove home and made myself a steak dinner that cost more than their entire Christmas meal. December 26th, Jake posted photos on Facebook. Big family Christmas at his new place. Everyone laughing, everyone together. The caption read, "Sometimes the best gift is knowing who your real family is." 47 likes. My mom commented, "So proud of our successful kids." I stared at that photo for 20 minutes. Not because I was hurt, but because I was calculating the closing costs on that house. The points I'd covered personally to get him the rate. The favors I'd called in to make his approval happen. The money I'd quietly moved around to make his dream possible. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because I was done being small to make them feel big. I'd spent years dimming my success so they wouldn't feel outshined. But standing in the shadow I'd created for myself, I realized something important. I didn't owe them my smallness anymore. January 2nd, Jake called me. Not to wish me Happy New Year, but because his mortgage payment had gone up. The bank made some mistake, he said. My rate jumped and there's all these new fees. Can you look into it? I told him I'd check on it. I didn't tell him what I already knew. January 15th, Mom called. First time in months. Jake's having trouble with his mortgage, she said, like it was my fault. You work with banks, right? Can't you help him out? I asked if she thought I was qualified to help. Well, I mean, it's not like you have a real job, but you understand money things. Money things. I'd been running a successful business for 8 years, had helped dozens of families achieve homeownership, and had personally saved them thousands in the process. But I understood money things. Like a garage mechanic who understands car things. I'll see what I can do, I told her. And I meant it. Just not in the way she thought. February 1st, I got a call from my business partner. The Peterson loan is coming up for review, Lisa said. Standard procedure. Want me to handle it? The Peterson loan. Jake's last name is Peterson. I'll take this one, I said. Professional due diligence meant reviewing all the original paperwork, verifying employment and income, ensuring all terms were being met. Jake's file was thick. I'd made it thick. I'd worked hard to make his approval happen. February 14th, Valentine's Day, I got a call from Emma. We need to talk about Jake's house situation, she said. Mom and Dad are worried. They think the bank is trying to scam him. I asked what kind of scam. They raised his payment by almost $400. That's not legal, right? It's perfectly legal when the promotional rate expires and the loan converts to standard terms. It's also exactly what I'd explained to Jake during the original closing, with paperwork he'd signed acknowledging he understood. But apparently, that conversation had been forgotten. Maybe we should all sit down and look at the documents together, I suggested. Emma got quiet. Well, Jake doesn't really want you involved. You know how you can be about money things. How I can be accurate, ethical, and professional. Apparently, that was a character flaw. March 1st, Jake's mortgage payment was late. Not unusual. People have cash flow issues. But it triggered an automatic review of his file. Credit check, employment verification, asset verification. Standard procedure. I recused myself from the process, handed it off to my associate, and waited. March 15th, my associate knocked on my office door. The Peterson file, she said, sliding a folder across my desk. Employment terminated 2 months ago. Hasn't made a payment since January. Credit score dropped 60 points. He's underwater on the loan by about $15,000. Jake had been laid off and hadn't told anyone. He'd been using credit cards to make his mortgage payments and buy Christmas presents. The same credit cards that had gotten him in trouble before. The same financial patterns that had required my intervention to get him approved in the first place. March 20th, I got a call from my mother. Not asking how I was, not checking in on my life, but demanding I fix Jake's problem. You have to do something, she said. He's going to lose the house. Our whole family Christmas was at that house. You can't let them take it. Our whole family Christmas. The one I'd been excluded from. The one where they'd celebrated not needing me. I'll see what I can do, I said again. And this time, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to follow protocol. I was going to be ethical. I was going to be professional. March 25th, the foreclosure notice was filed. Public record. Standard procedure for loans in default. Jake had 30 days to cure the default or face foreclosure proceedings. My business partner asked if I wanted to handle it personally, given the family connection. Conflict of interest, I said. Better to keep it clean. But I did make one call. To Jake directly. I heard about the notice, I said. If you want to talk through your options, I'm available. He hung up on me. Literally hung up. Then sent a text, stay out of our business. April 1st, April Fool's Day, I got a call from my father. Marcus, he said, in his principal voice, we need to have a serious conversation about your brother's situation. I asked what kind of conversation. The kind where you stop playing games and help your family. Playing games. I'd arranged the original loan, negotiated terms he couldn't have gotten elsewhere, covered closing costs out of my own pocket, and maintained professional boundaries when the loan went bad. But I was playing games. What kind of help are you looking for? I asked. Use your connections. Make some calls. Fix this. Like I was a teenager being asked to return a borrowed lawnmower. I can refer him to a foreclosure attorney, I offered. Or a credit counselor. There are programs available for people in his situation. That's not what I'm asking, Dad said. I'm asking you to use your influence to make this go away. Use my influence. Like I was running a charity instead of a business. Like ethics and regulations were suggestions. Like my professional reputation was expendable for family convenience. April 10th, I got a group text. Family meeting. Sunday. Jake's house. Urgent. We need to discuss Marcus's refusal to help with the mortgage situation. My refusal to help. I'd offered every legitimate option available. But apparently, legitimate wasn't enough. I almost didn't go. I had clients to call, properties to show, real work to do. But something about that text, the way it positioned me as the problem, made me want to see this through. So I cleared my Sunday schedule and drove to Jake's house one more time. The driveway was full. Mom, Dad, Emma, the aunts and uncles from Christmas. Jake opened the door like he was preparing for battle. I can't believe you actually came, he said. Behind him, I could see everyone arranged in the living room like a tribunal. I walked in and found a seat on the couch. The same couch I'd helped him pick out, in the house I'd helped him buy, surrounded by people who'd excluded me from their last gathering. "Marcus," my mother started, "we need to talk about your attitude." My attitude. Not Jake's unemployment, not his financial irresponsibility, not his refusal to communicate with his own mortgage broker. My attitude. "I'm listening," I said. Emma pulled out a notebook like she was taking minutes. "This was organized. This was planned. You're letting your brother lose his house," Dad said, "out of spite." I asked what spite he was referring to. "Because we didn't invite you to Christmas. Because you're jealous of Jake's success. Because you can't stand seeing other people happy." Jealous of Jake's success. I looked around the room at the family who'd gathered to assign blame, and something clicked. They needed me to be the villain so they could be the victims. They needed my failure so they could feel successful. And they'd been writing that story for years. "Let me make sure I understand," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Jake is 3 months behind on his mortgage. He's been unemployed for 4 months. He's maxed out his credit cards. And the problem is my attitude." Uncle Robert shifted in his chair. Aunt Patricia looked at her phone. "The problem," Mom said, "is that you have the power to fix this and you're choosing not to. That's not how family works." I nodded like I was considering her point. Then I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. "Can I show you all something?" I turned the screen toward the room. "This is my business account. These are the deposits from the last 6 months." Emma stopped taking notes. Jake stared at the numbers like they were written in a foreign language. "I've had a good year." Dad cleared his throat. "What's your point, Marcus?" I closed that app and opened another one. "This is my investment account. Real estate portfolio, mutual funds, retirement savings." The room got quieter. Numbers have a way of commanding attention. "And this," I said, opening one more app, "is my mortgage company's client management system." I scrolled to Jake's account. Peterson, Jacob M. Original loan amount, $185,000. Current balance, $178,000. Status, default. I turned the phone toward Jake specifically. "Your rate increased because your promotional period ended. Your payment went up because you'd been paying interest only for the first year. All of this was explained during closing. All of this was documented in your loan agreement." Jake's face went red. "That's not, you never." "I have your signatures on every page," I continued. "I have email confirmations of every conversation. I have the recording of the closing where I explained the rate adjustment. Twice." Emma looked up from her notebook. "Recording. All closings are recorded for quality assurance and legal protection. It's standard practice." I scrolled through the account notes. Jake acknowledged understanding the terms. He signed the disclosure. He confirmed his employment status and income. Mom leaned forward. "So help him now. You're his brother." I looked at her directly. "I'm his mortgage broker. There are laws about what I can and can't do. Regulations. Professional standards. Ethics violations that could cost me my license." "Since when do you care about rules?" Dad asked. "Since always, apparently, but they'd never noticed. Since I built a business worth protecting," I said. "Since I earned a reputation worth maintaining. Since I learned that cutting corners doesn't actually help anyone." Uncle Robert spoke up. "There has to be something you can do. Some kind of family discount or inside deal." I almost laughed. The kind of inside deal that would land me in federal prison? The kind of family discount that would destroy my business and hurt my other clients. Jake finally found his voice. "You could loan me the money. Privately. I'll pay you back." I asked him how he planned to pay me back without a job. "I'll get another job. This is temporary." The same thing he'd said 3 years ago. The same promise he'd made before bankruptcy. "I offered you a foreclosure attorney," I said. I offered you credit counseling. I offered you information about loan modification programs. You hung up on me. Jake looked around the room for support. Because you were being condescending. Condescending. I'd offered professional help and resources. I'd maintained appropriate boundaries. I'd followed ethics guidelines that protect both borrowers and lenders. But I'd been condescending. What would you like me to do differently? I asked. Emma looked up from her notebook. Be more like family and less like a business. Be more like family. The family that had excluded me from Christmas. The family that had called me unsuccessful. The family that had ignored my actual success while celebrating breadclip innovations. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up. Jake's going to lose the house unless he cures the default in the next 2 weeks. That means paying the back payments plus penalties. About $1,800. Plus he needs steady employment to qualify for any modification. Can't you just... Mom started. No, I said. I can't just ignore the rules. I can't just pretend the numbers are different. I can't just make his problems disappear because we share DNA. The room went completely quiet. But I can show you something interesting, I continued, pulling out a folder I'd brought from my car. Jake's original loan application. Employment history, income verification, credit report. Want to guess why he almost didn't qualify? I opened the folder and spread documents on the coffee table. Bankruptcy discharge from 2015. Debt-to-income ratio of 47%. Credit score of 580. No savings. No assets. No co-signer. Emma's pen stopped moving. Dad leaned forward to look. The bank's underwriting guidelines required a 20% down payment for applicants with his profile. Jake had 3% saved. I pulled out another document. So someone had to make up the difference. Someone had to pay the additional closing costs. Someone had to guarantee the loan. Jake stared at the papers like they were evidence of a crime he'd forgotten committing. I don't understand, he said. Mom picked up one of the documents. What does this mean? She asked. I pointed to a signature line at the bottom. It means Marcus Peterson co-signed the loan, I said. It means Marcus Peterson paid the additional down payment. It means Marcus Peterson has been legally responsible for this mortgage from day one. The room went dead silent. Dad looked at the signature, then at me, then at Jake. You never told us, he said. Jake shook his head. I didn't. He said it was just paperwork. He said it didn't mean anything. It meant I'd risked my credit, my assets, and my professional reputation to help him buy a house. It means, I continued, that when Jake stops making payments, it affects my credit score. When the loan goes into default, I'm legally obligated to cure it. When foreclosure proceedings begin, my name is on the paperwork too. Emma looked up from the documents. So you could lose your house too? Not just my house. My business credit. My ability to secure financing for other clients. My professional standing with every bank I work with. It's more complicated than that, but yes. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. Why didn't you say something before? Because they'd never asked. Because they'd assumed I was being petty instead of professional. Because they'd needed me to be the villain in their story about Jake's success. I've been saying something, I said. I've been trying to help Jake understand his obligations. I've been following up on his payments. I've been managing the risk to both of us. You just called it attitude and spite. Mom picked up another document. A payment history. These payments, she said, pointing to the screen. Some of them are marked as paid by Marcus Peterson. She looked at me. You've been making his payments. Only when necessary to protect my credit, I said. 3 times in the last year. January, when he was late after Christmas spending. March, when his car needed repairs. Last month, when he was between jobs. Jake's face went white. You never told me, Jake said. I would have paid you back. The same Jake who'd hung up on me when I tried to discuss his options. The same Jake who'd texted me to stay out of his business. When? I asked. With what money? Dad was reading through the co-signer agreement. This says you're responsible for the full loan amount if Jake defaults. I nodded. It also says I have the right to cure the default and take possession of the property to protect my interests. The room got very, very quiet. Emma stopped taking notes altogether. Mom set down the papers. Jake stared at me like I just explained quantum physics. Take possession? Dad asked. You mean? I mean I can cure the default, take over the payments, and Jake becomes my tenant instead of the owner. Or I can let it go to foreclosure and we both lose everything. I sat back down. Those are the legal options available to me. But you wouldn't do that to family, Mom said. It wasn't a question. It was a plea disguised as a statement. I don't want to do that, I said. Which is why I've been trying to help Jake find alternatives. Legal alternatives. Professional alternatives. Jake finally spoke up. What do you want me to do? He asked. Not demanding, not argumentative. Just defeated. I want you to get a job, I said. Any job. I want you to start making payments again. I want you to communicate with me about your situation. And if I can't? He asked. If you can't, I'll exercise my legal options to protect both of us. I'll cure the default, take over the house, and rent it back to you at market rate until you can get back on your feet. The room processed this information slowly. Emma raised her hand like she was in school. So you'd become his landlord? I nodded. It's better than foreclosure. He keeps living in the house, I protect my credit and business interests, and he has time to rebuild his finances. Uncle Robert laughed, but not like anything was funny. So the kid we thought was a screw-up is actually the one holding everything together. I wouldn't have put it that way, but the numbers didn't lie. I've been holding it together for 3 years. Mom looked around the room at the family she'd gathered to fix my attitude. We owe you an apology, she said quietly. Dad nodded. Emma closed her notebook. Jake stared at his hands. The aunts and uncles suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. You don't owe me an apology, I said. You owe me acknowledgement. You owe me respect for the work I do and the business I've built. You owe me inclusion in the family I've been supporting. The room stayed quiet. Starting with next Christmas, I continued. Which, by the way, will probably be at my house. Since I'm the one with stable housing and disposable income. A few people smiled. Not big smiles, but real ones. Jake looked up from his hands. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't understand any of this. I thought you were just being difficult. I told him difficult and professional sometimes look the same from the outside. But the results are different. What happens now? Emma asked. Now Jake gets a job, starts making payments, and we work together to get his finances stable. And you all stop treating my success like it's accidental or temporary. Dad stood up and shook my hand like we'd just concluded a business meeting. Mom hugged me, which felt strange after months of distance. We're proud of you, she said. We just didn't understand what you were doing. I told her she could have asked. I would have explained it. I wanted to explain it. As everyone was leaving, Jake pulled me aside. The house, he said. If you have to take it over, what happens to my family? I told him his family was my family too. Nobody's getting thrown out. We're just changing the paperwork. 2 weeks later, Jake started a new job. Not glamorous, but steady income with benefits. His first paycheck went to catching up the mortgage. His second paycheck went to paying me back for the payments I'd covered. Progress. not perfection. 3 months later, I hosted Christmas at my house. Jake brought his famous green bean casserole. Emma brought her kids, who finally learned my name. Mom and Dad brought wine and stories about their successful kids, plural. 6 months later, Jake qualified for a loan modification that reduced his payment and fixed his rate. I removed myself as co-signer, and he became fully responsible for his own mortgage. Independence, not dependence. The family group chat is active now. Not just for emergencies, but for regular life. Birthday wishes, random photos, stupid memes. I'm not the outsider looking in anymore. I'm not the screw-up who needs fixing. I'm the successful business owner who happens to be their son and brother. The one who understands money things. The one who knows how to make complicated problems simple. The one who shows up when family needs real help. Sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who see you least clearly. They see who you used to be, or who they think you should be, instead of who you actually are. But numbers don't lie. Results don't lie. And eventually, reality wins.